There we go. Hello everyone, I'm Jenna or Jenna Cat, and I create crafty and lifestyle vlogs here on YouTube with an emphasis on productivity, creativity, and self-care. And today's video is long in the making. I started filming for this project on September 14th, 2024. Today is April 14th, 2025. Seriously, this entire process from making my mask to editing the footage to now filming this intro, this whole thing has taken me 8 freaking months, start to finish. So I'm very excited to share my clicker mask making process with y'all today. And honestly, I could say I did this on purpose because Season 2 of The Last of Us just came out yesterday. You know, the timing couldn't be more perfect. So I'm even more stoked to share this project with y'all. This is my clicker mask. I'm showing y'all a little peek of what it looks like finished, and then I will show more of what it looks like at the end. But this is it. This is my clicker mask. I'm super happy with how it turned out. The process was a lot. And you know what? We're just gonna go ahead and jump right on into it because this is gonna be a lengthy one. So let's go ahead and start some crafting. The supplies I used for this adventure are super glue, fake teeth, DOS air dry clay, Crayola model magic clay, 8mm thick foam, black sheer chiffon fabric, a Dremel, a heat gun, a GoPro head strap, clay varnish, a variety of acrylic paints, and this piece of mushroom that I harvested off a tree trunk a few winters back for inspiration. I will have Amazon affiliate links for the supplies listed in the video description below. Before I can even attempt this project, I need to start with a template for my clicker mask. I used some scratch paper to cut random shapes, vaguely resembling mushroom petal clusters, and began piecing them together into a pattern that loosely matched my reference photos. Surprisingly, this process took a long time. I kept holding the pieces to my face, rearranging them, adding some, removing others, until it began looking right. Once I was happy with the template, I labeled each piece like top right, left middle, etc. So I knew where each piece should go. Of course, I ended up rearranging them again later, so the labels kind of didn't matter, but it did give me a solid starting out point. I traced those shapes onto my 8mm thick foam and started cutting. Let me tell you, cutting foam with carpal tunnel is not a fun endeavor. Next came the frustrating part. Staring at myself in the mirror for 20 minutes, unsatisfied with every petal configuration I tried. At this point, it's worth mentioning my plan for seeing while wearing the mask, because I do intend to wear this to a con. So in The Last of Us, the mushrooms that take over the victim's head, like, split down the middle, I think to represent where the mushroom has grown out of said person's head. Yeah, gruesome, I know. So I thought, why not use that to my advantage? I positioned the split over my eye, giving me a tiny but functional window to see. Even though I was feeling extremely disheartened with how the mask was looking, I realized the pieces were too large for my face, so I trimmed them down to fit better, but I still wasn't quite satisfied. I know they say trust the process, blah 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 blah, and I know I've said that in all of my videos time and time again, but honestly, I wasn't trusting anything at this point. I was creatively drained and frustrated, but I forced myself to glue the pieces down anyway, because sometimes in art, you have to make a decision and stick with it, even if it feels like you're choosing between a rock and a hard place. Worst case scenario, the mask looks awful and I start over. Not the end of the world, but it would be the end of my bank account because I'm a poor creative type. By the time I glued everything down, I was mentally drained, so I took a break and hit the gym to clear my head. Moving my body and working out gets me out of almost every creative block, so look, I highly recommend this technique. Even if it's just going for a short walk, it does wonders for unclogging your brain. The next day, with a fresh perspective, I saw all the things I missed. The mask was too big around my mouth, and there was a huge empty space above my head. After trimming and tweaking, I felt like it was finally coming together. But there was still one problem. My scissors left jagged edges all over the foam. I tried smoothing them down with a nail Dremel, but it wasn't nearly strong enough. If I had a more industrial grade tool, I think it would have worked perfectly. So I switched tactics. I used a heat gun and gently smoothed the edges of the foam with my fingers. This worked much better. Just make sure to test the temperature first before touching it with bare skin, and always wear a respirator mask if you are sanding foam or like literally any material. Waste not, want not, I do believe they say. I didn't want to waste a thing, so I used scrap foam to tuck in between each petal layer, adding dimension and a bit of curve to each piece. For the elastic, I recycled some from old face masks and super glued it to the back of the mask. I used more spare foam to help glue down the elastic, adding more durability. Now for the fun part, adding texture. I started with DOS air dry clay. At first, I struggled to get it to stick to the foam, but eventually, with some patience and very persistent kneading and smashing, it held in place. I tried using rubbing alcohol to smooth the clay, but it made it gummy and dry, so I switched to plain old water, which worked like a charm. I used a combination of my fingers and sculpting tools to create texture on each petal. Petal took about 35 minutes to an hour to finish, and with 8 petals total, you can imagine how long that took. I took frequent breaks over the course of many days to stay fresh and keep my creative juices flowing. Even though this part was fun, it was also very tedious. Okay, so I got about halfway through adding the mushroom clay texture to my clicker mask when I realized that the clay I got is drying a lot heavier than I was expecting, and so now my mask is getting pretty heavy. So when I go to put it on, it starts to fall off. So I've got a few ideas on how to handle that. Idea 1 is that I need to get some stronger elastic for the back, and idea 2 is I'm gonna pivot from using, wow, this clay is really good quality clay and I love working with it. There's a plane going by. It can go the distance. Please go away so I can finish this video. So even though I've really loved working with this clay, and it's like a really high quality clay, it is just too heavy for this mask. So we're just gonna pivot to some good old-fashioned Crayola air dry clay. I think it will dry a whole heck of a lot lighter. So wish me luck on this new pivot. As you can see here, I am testing the weight of this new clay because I am already skeptical if this is actually any lighter than the previous clay. So, as I stated before, I am developing a little bit of a weight issue. Hi, sweetheart. Hi, sweetheart. What's up? Hi, did you want to be a part of the video? That's my good girl. Can you go to bed? Can you go to bed? Go on. Bed. Good girl. Bless you. Lie down. Good girl. Thank you. So, as I mentioned before, I'm developing a little bit of a weight issue with my clicker mask. And it's like barely even halfway textured. I bought this air dry Crayola clay that I thought was the same air dry clay that I've used in the past, which is really lightweight when it dries. But no, this is the same weight as my original clay. And finally, I realized the difference is I needed Model Magic air dry clay, like the stuff that little kids use, like baby children. I needed baby children clay for my clicker mask so it isn't just like absurdly heavy. But on top of that, I was trying to figure out, because I do have quite a bit of heavy on it already, so I needed to figure out how to secure it to my head better, and I had a great response from someone on TikTok, and I was like thinking along these lines, but I couldn't quite put it into words until they had said it kind of needs to be like a helmet, the way you attach it to your head. There needs to be straps, like more straps kind of going over your head, like a helmet. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can use a GoPro head strap. So I bought a cheap GoPro head strap off Amazon, and I look like a major dork when I put it on. But I am hoping that when I put it on and glue it to my mask, kind of like this, that might work. That might work. This is not in the right place though. This is not in the right place. This needs to be up higher. So it actually needs to be more like this. I mean, I could take this piece off and move it. This is supposed to be for my mouth. I think this will work. I just need to finagle placements. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera because this is going to be a really like tedious job for me, and fingers crossed this works. So this is what the back is looking like. It's looking pretty stupid, but I think it's going to give me the support I need. And then this support piece here, I think will also, I am hoping, help kind of pull this top of the mask back a little bit. I just want this mask to be a little bit... Madam. Excuse me, madam. Can't you see I'm trying to film? I want this mask to kind of curve around my head more instead of just being straight on. And then I have this support piece up top here that's glued to the strap and the mask. And I think this will give me the support I need. Okay, time for the moment of truth. Does my mask pass the shake test? This is so much more complicated to put on now. So first I put on these straps, which don't do a whole lot with how heavy it is, but I put them on for support anyways. And then I put this on. This is so stupid. It's on. Oh my gosh. Okay. It feels really sturdy. It feels so much more sturdy than before. It's barely moving. Oh my gosh. This idea was perfect. It does mess up my hair quite a bit. And my third clay attempt ended up being the worst yet. Even though Model Magic clay is leagues lighter than the other clay, it was not even remotely close to being as sculptable as the first. Sculptable? Is that a word? So I trashed that idea pretty quick. But I did use the Model Magic to extend some of the mushroom petals and add more visual intrigue. We are just showing off my finished textured clicker mask, and I'm gonna put it on. Okay, we've got those straps on, and then we're gonna put the head strap on. There we go. It holds, it holds, it holds. That is so exciting. But the next part of my plan is to seal in the clay because it is an air dry clay. So I'm gonna seal in the clay with this Sculpt matte varnish. I've never used it before. It's staying on my face. This is so exciting, and it's very heavy. So this is really just like the best outcome I could have hoped for this thing. Whew. Once the clay was dry, and I mean really dry, drier than the Sahara, that's the only analogy I could think of. I waited several days to ensure there was no moisture left. It was now time for painting. I started with a base coat of clay varnish. In fact, I used 2 coats of clay varnish, followed by 2 coats of white acrylic paint. Then I added raw sienna across the whole mask and used a dry paper towel to dab away the excess. This was especially necessary for keeping the paint from building and clumping up in the grooves of the mushroom texture.
Years later.
Okay, well and truly, from the bottom of my heart, I do not know why I am like this. And, okay, so you don't know what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the last time I touched this mask was October 20th. You want to know what the date today is? It is January 20th. I have not worked on this mask for literally 3 months. 3 months. And painting is my favorite part of like any project. So legitimately, I don't know why I'm like this. I get about halfway through a big project. If I don't have a deadline, I just stop working on it. And then I just forget it exists for months. It's time to get my butt into gear because I won 2 tickets to a con coming up literally this weekend. Literally in 6 days. And I want to wear this mask. I have 6 days to finish this bad boy. 6 days. Why am I like this? This could have been done months ago. It really could have. But it's not. It's not done. And so I need to finish it. But I think we're at the home stretch. So let's kind of do a little check-in to see how I'm doing. I've got to add more layers of paint and colors and stuff, which is the fun part, right? That's the part I look forward to the most on pretty much all my projects. So paint. I've got to put some more layers of paint to make this look super gross, super creepy. So excited. I also have to do the mouthpiece. I've got these fake teeth, and I'm going to cut a piece of foam that's going to cover the top part of my mouth and then stick the teeth in like bits of clay, and I'm going to make that look super gross. I've got to paint that. I've got to wait for that to dry and then paint that. So that's why I'm getting a little nervous. I have to do that today so I can give it a day or so to dry and then paint that. And then I have to get the clothes that I'm going to destroy for this outfit and dirty it up and rip some holes in it. Figure out where the holes are because I want to create some petal pieces to come out of like my shoulder, my chest. Like, I have 6 days to do that. Oh, what have I done? What have I done? Okay, so yeah, today I'm going to start with putting a layer of paint on the main piece. And then see how I'm feeling. See what my heart is telling me to work on next. Yeah, all right. Let's get to some painting. My favorite part of the whole process is adding the detail paint. You'll catch on pretty quick that I used layers upon layers of paint, building up shades and dimension with each color until I got the look I was after. My first layer was red dialed down with some black, painted in the middle of the mask where the mask theoretically splits the face open, adding depth and a bit of gore, because what's a creepy zombie mask without a bit of gore? To feather out the edges, I used a dry brush technique to create an almost gradient effect. While continually checking in with my reference photos, I decided to mix a bright orange with that original raw sienna and painted the tips of the petals so they would stand out against the rest of the mushroom color, and of course blended everything in with more dry brushing technique to avoid harsh lines. Once those main colors were dry, I went in with a black wash, which is just a watered down black paint. The thinness of the paint allows for the pigment to sink down into those crevices and texture lines, adding to the illusion of depth and darkness. I dabbed away excess paint with a paper towel, but I still had to go in with more layers of paint to cover up where the black paint became too strong in undesired areas. This was ultimately all a balancing act, trying to get the right balance of colors without new colors tarnishing the old colors. So yes, there was a lot of back and forth with my painting layers. Okay, I couldn't put this part off any longer. It was time to address the mouth. I don't know why I had such a creative block with this part, and I left it till the very last possible moment to actually work on it. I experimented with different pieces of scrap foam until I found the shape that worked best. My plan is to only make the top half of the mouth, representing that maybe the bottom half rotted off, which is pretty gross, I know. I cut the foam in half so I could set the pieces angled from each other, because of course that split down the face is going to also split down the mouth. I covered those pieces with clay, and then I took my eerily realistic fake teeth from Amazon, yes, I swear they are fake, I know they look pretty convincing, and began shoving them into the clay, sculpting as needed to make the gums more textured. I also painted the teeth a brownish red, rendering them less pristine and polished because I'm sorry, but I doubt clickers receive comprehensive dental care. As there are techniques to highlight grooves and indents in sculptures, there's also techniques to highlight raised areas as well. For those raised areas of the mask, I used a whitish yellow dry brush to highlight them and create more contrast. To mimic spores or pollen, I used a textured sponge brush dipped in yellow and dabbed it all across my mask. Adding my last little details and using a thin brush to paint my deepest grooves in even darker black. Now, this part is surprisingly important. As I said earlier, I left a crack for one eye so I could see while wearing the mask, but I want to ensure that my own face and eye will not be seen in return. To accomplish this, I used 2 layers of sheer black chiffon fabric. Because the fabric is so close to my eye, I can easily see out of the sheerness, but anyone looking from a distance would only see a dark shadow. And of course, I used super glue to secure it in place. The mask is complete. Now it is time to assemble the rest of my costume. I started the rest of my look by cutting up an old shirt and dirtying it. I boiled some tea and let only sections of the shirt sit in that for over an hour. I also sprinkled instant coffee over the shirt as well, hoping it would add some more like speckled stains and grime. It didn't work super great, but you know, it was a little experiment. is warm, but not like hot. So I'm gonna go ahead and just take it out. Yeah, I think that's looking really cool. Okay, so I'm gonna just like rinse this out with cold water and then put it in the wash. Leftover Model Magic clay to create basic petal shapes that would later be attached to my skin using spirit gum. I painted those petals with the original raw sienna. Then once they were attached to my skin, used special effects makeup and fake blood to tie the whole look together. And with that, the clicker mask is complete. Now, onto the reveal. Overall, this project was a journey of trial, error, and perseverance. I'm really proud of how the mask turned out and hope this video gave you some helpful tips for your own projects. Don't be afraid to trust the process even when it seems like nothing is going right. You just have to keep pushing forward, which honestly is like pretty applicable life advice just in general. Even if things don't seem to be working out, keep pushing forward. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe for more crafts tutorials and more creative lifestyle vlogs. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope y'all have a lovely day.